Hi, I'm Dr. Saveri.
And I'm audiologist Chelsea, and we are here today to discuss case 1. In this case, the family has no history of deafness, but when the child was born, she was diagnosed with Goldenhar syndrome. During the most recent MRI scan, it was found that the child has no bilateral auditory nerve, which means that she was born with absolutely no hearing. Furthermore, the MRI determined that her left cerebellum was atrophied, which means that she will have problems with motor planning. Since the Goldenhar syndrome has secondary problems such as deficits in the eyes, ears, and spine, she will also have to have future surgeries. In the case of receiving an auditory brainstem implant, in both ears, first the parents need to know what an auditory brainstem implant is and what the ABR stands for.
Hello, Mrs. Modern. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
And how's Peggy's corneal transplant looking?
She's doing well. I think she's much more receptive lately. Look at her.
That's good to hear. I'm glad she has a little bit of progress. We're here to discuss today about Peggy's future hearing, because with the Goldenhar syndrome, there's
more problems. There's still more problems even after these surgeries.
Yes, ma'am. She is prone to say that she has future surgeries in her ear and her spine. So we're here to talk about her future hearing aids, options, and Dr. Holland.
Is there going to always be surgeries? Are there always going to be all of these issues or these problems with her?
Ma'am, I think with a diagnosis like this, our best option is to just take it day by day. And today we want to focus on the hearing problem. As you know, we went in to check to see for candidacy for a cochlear implant and found during MRI that your daughter does not have an auditory nerve. And that sounds really scary, but there are options. There is something called an ABR. So when we tested your daughter's brain, she did have response to that. So that means her ABR is working correctly, her auditory brainstem. And so there is something called an auditory brainstem implant. So instead of going through her ear, we would actually go through her brain, and it would stimulate her brain with hearing. So that is an option. It is a surgery, and it has the risk of any other surgery, but it could be an option for your daughter.
What do you know about it?
I will tell you that there hasn't been a lot of research done. It's a fairly new procedure, but so far it has had great success.
Fairly new, so there's no hope then?
I wouldn't say there's no hope. I think this is definitely a great option to consider. I think it's something you will have to research, and that we as doctors and professionals will research it with you.
Would you do it, or would you get me in contact with somebody? Or
we can definitely put you in contact. You could even get a second opinion by a different audiologist, a different surgeon, to see what they think. Maybe someone who's been on one of the teams and done a surgery already.
Okay, sorry. Continue what you were saying.
Yeah. So if that would be the route that you chose, we would need to consider her modes of communication. Your daughter, if that worked and she had proper hearing, then you could go the oral approach, which means we would put her with a speech pathologist. They would train her ears and her mouth, so she would speak and she would listen. If the surgery isn't an option for you and you wanted to go a different way, you could do sign language. But it depends on how she grows physically. She may have some motor planning issues, which that could prove a problem, but that also may not be an issue. That's something we'll just have to wait and see what happens there. But those are our two main options. Yeah, there are plenty of options. There's also some smaller options. We have things like speech reading and cued speech and things like that as well that we could talk about on a later day.
So speaking, so does that mean, so if we figure out how to speak, what about education? What about teaching? Like, not even education, just getting her to be able to communicate. Even once we pick an option, then teaching it what is there to do?
Well, Miss Modern, I know Tennessee offers a lot of state services and support. The Tennessee Early Intervention System, which offers from birth till 3. It pays for your any kind of surgeries. It helps you. It will provide you an agent, and it will guide you step by step what to do. And we're here to help you. And Dr. Holland will talk about her school placement, and based off of that, where she is, we'll establish an individual education plan for your daughter, and we'll go from there.
So we'll pick some form of communication, and then there's these early intervention services, and then we're already getting into education.
Ma'am, right now we just want to educate you. You don't have to make any decisions today. We just want to give you all the options that we have. So like she was saying,
where is she going to go to school? What is she going to do?
After she rolls out of those services, we will set up something called an individualized education plan, and that will prepare her for school. You'll decide then, that's when you'll have to make a decision on what type of school you want her to be in and what will best fit her. But that will also depend.
Who makes the IEP, this individual education plan?
You'll sit down with the school system. They'll have a team. There could be speech pathologists, there could be audiologists, there could be a special educator, you. It'll be a group effort. There will be principals. There will be a whole team of people there, and they're all for you and for your daughter. But for school placement, it depends on what mode of communication. If she is oral, and you get the surgery and that's the way you want to go, you could go into a mainstream classroom, maybe with services in there.
So she might be.
There are many options. You could also, if you don't want the surgery and she wanted to just use sign language, you could go to a school like Tennessee School for the Deaf. It's a residential school. She could live there. She could be immersed in it. If you didn't want her to live there, she could just go during the day. She would have deaf teachers, hearing teachers. She could use both modes of communication if she wanted. Maybe she could do that for a couple years and test it out. You could also consider private schools if that was something that you wanted to do. But there are definitely options, but it's not something you have to make a decision on now.
So what would y'all do if this were your child? Like, what should I do? There's so many options, and I get what you're saying, but like, how do I know which one's the right one? How do I know which one will make her successful? There's so many options, so many different ways to go, and you can start one and end up wrong. What happens if I should have chose the other one? Like, what is there to do? Like, how do I know the right choice?
Well, ma'am, there's so many options here. Us as we doctors will be here step by step with you, and we'll also research into the auditory brainstem implant if that's the case. We would like you to go home and research about the implant also, and if you have any concerns or any questions, we will all be here for you. And
we also want to reassure you that these decisions aren't permanent. If you make a wrong decision, it's not going to devastate your child's life forever. So know that you can't just make the wrong decision. It's not permanent.